Thank you very much, Mr. Hodge. And again, I'm going to apologize. There are a number of votes taking place on the floor, so you're going to see people disappearing for a while. Let's start the questions off with Professor Zuckman. Professor Zuckman, how does it happen that the top 1% in the United States are able to underreport about 21% of their true income? What is that? How do they do that? And what does that mean for tax revenue in our country?
Thank you very much, Senator, for your question. Indeed, according to a recent study that was published earlier this week, the top 1% underreports about 20% of its true income. By contrast, the bottom 50% of taxpayers underreports about 7% of their true income. So income underreporting appears to rise quite significantly with income. And that's due to a number of reasons, but one reason I want to emphasize is the dramatic budget cuts that have happened for the IRS over the last decade that severely limit the ability of the IRS to audit high-income taxpayers extensively. And I think it is critically important, and in fact, this should be the number one step towards a fairer tax system, to increase the IRS budget for enforcement. This is essential to improve the actual progressivity of the tax system. And let me mention two areas where enforcement could be improved, and two reasons why there's a significant tax gap at the top. One is that there is substantial evasion in complex business structures, including partnerships. And second, there is continued offshore tax evasion, the concealment of assets and income in offshore tax havens. These are two areas where there is a need for much stronger enforcement.
Professor, thank you very, very much. Let me go to Ms. Hanauer. Ms. Hanauer, in 2018, Amazon, one of the most profitable corporations in the world, paid nothing in federal income taxes. Now, people are shocked to hear that. How does that happen, that a hugely profitable corporation owned by the wealthiest guy in the world pay nothing in federal income tax?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question, Senator. I mean, I think that there are three primary ways that you see very profitable corporations avoiding income tax. One is the offshore corporate tax avoidance that Professor Zuckman talked about. And we could address that by equalizing rates on domestic and foreign profits, or coming as close as possible to doing so. I know you've had a bill to address that, and I think that that's a very good direction to go in. A second is in a more domestic way, which is that a lot of companies use accelerated depreciation or even expensing to avoid taxes on their assets, and we would favor instead having economic depreciation on those assets. And again, I think that that's something that you have proposed. And another way that we see a lot of domestic tax avoidance is having this stock options book tax gap, where when companies pay out compensation in stock options, they report one thing to the IRS and they report something entirely different to their investors. That does not make a lot of sense. So we agree with Professor Zuckman that better funding the IRS is part of the solution, but so is addressing these three major forms of avoidance.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me direct the question to Ms. Disney. Your father and uncle created, one of the great iconic corporations in the world. Did the high tax rates of the 1950s and 1960s cause your family to work less hard and be less innovative?
Thank you, Senator Sanders. I would offer that the proof for that is probably in the pudding. We know that the 50s and the 60s were some of the most creative, successful years at the Walt Disney Company. They were never entirely working for the money. And so what the tax environment was really didn't have an impact on how they went about their business. But over and above that, it's really important to remember that so much of what they did couldn't have been done without massive spending, for instance, on the highway bill in the 1950s. Without the highway bill, you get no Disneyland, no Disney World. So in fact, they benefited by the high tax environment because of the massive federal and state investments in infrastructure.
Good. Thank you very much. Senator Graham?